It was 3 days and 3 nights of ferocious debate on the Senate floor, and it prevailed by only 5 votes. This one is 100 votes. What clear evidence, Senator Levin and I worked on the drafting with our leadership of this, what clear evidence of the unity in the Congress, and the Congress speak for the people of the United States.
Now, overnight here at the Pentagon, workers at the attack site have been shoring up one of the collapsed walls. They hope to get that job done by sunrise today so that they can start bringing in finally some heavy equipment to remove more of the debris. Now, last night at the Pentagon, there was a candlelight vigil. As people lined the roadways, you can see them here as the workers drove by. They were greeted by the people standing quietly outside the Pentagon. There also were prayer services here yesterday where survivors of the crash eulogized those who died. The latest estimate is that 189 people died here Tuesday. 125 of them were Pentagon personnel. The 64 others were the passengers aboard the American Airlines 757 jet, which slammed into the Pentagon. Back to you.
Mark Potter at the Pentagon, thanks very much. Zane?
Thanks, Jonathan. Well, President Bush has called the foe in America's new war against terrorism a nameless, faceless enemy. And Secretary of State Colin Powell says retaliation won't be confined to the battlefield.
The enemy is in many places. The enemy is not looking to be found. The enemy is hidden. The enemy is very often right here within our own country. And so you have to design a campaign plan that goes after that kind of enemy. And it isn't always blunt force military, although that is certainly an option. It may well be that the diplomatic efforts, political efforts, legal, financial, other efforts may be just as effective against that kind of an enemy as with military force.
A public opinion survey suggests Americans overwhelmingly think the U.S. should take tough military action. In a CNN and Time poll, 62% of those polled said they feel Congress should declare war on those responsible for Tuesday's atrocities. 27% were opposed. The opinion poll sampling error is plus or minus 3%. One of the few governments that recognizes Afghanistan's ruling Taliban is neighboring Pakistan. But that country's military leader, General Pervez Musharraf, is now promising support for the United States. CNN's Tom Mintier is monitoring things very closely in the capital, Islamabad, and he joins us now. Tom.
Zane, currently there is a cabinet meeting, a joint meeting between the cabinet and the Security Council. This meeting started just about an hour ago. It was chaired by Pervez Musharraf, and everyone in the cabinet is there. It is the last time there was a meeting like this was in July, just before the summit meeting with India. So this is a very unique meeting. They are debating and deciding what support to offer the United States. But in the beginning of the cabinet meeting, the president started off by offering a moment of silent prayer for those who were killed in the terrorist attacks in the United States, allowing our camera inside. It never happened before that the international media was allowed to attend a Pakistani cabinet meeting, but they allowed it for CNN this morning.
May I first of all take this opportunity to request all of you to join me in a 1-minute silence in memory of all the innocent people, the thousands of innocent people killed in this terrorist attack in the United States, the thousands of innocent people from all over the world, people of all religions, and may I also add people of all ages, children, young men, women, and old people. Let us all join to observe 1-minute silence in their memory.
I asked the president going into this cabinet meeting if the decision had been made to assist the United States. He said, I'm going to present it to the cabinet and the Security Council right now. I also had the opportunity to talk to Abdul Sattar, the Pakistani foreign minister, and talked about the Pakistanis providing intelligence to the Americans should a military strike take place. He said he wanted to wait until the cabinet meeting was being completed, but he said the level of cooperation for a long time has been quite good. So painting a very positive outlook going into this cabinet meeting. We will probably receive a written statement in the next couple of hours on the actual decisions, but there have been several calls between the U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell and the Pakistani president outlining what the United States would like. The new ambassador to Pakistan, who just presented her credentials to the Pakistani president a couple of days ago, also held a meeting which lasted nearly an hour where she outlined what assistance the United States would like to have from Pakistan. It is extremely critical. You heard John King mention earlier how critical the assistance that Pakistan might offer should indeed military action take place inside Afghanistan. Zane?
Tom, what kind of domestic backlash could there be of Pakistan's support to the United States?
Well, I think the last time the United States sent cruise missiles into Afghanistan, there was probably a bit of backlash here. There were riots in the street. But this may be different. Most of the leadership that I talked to this morning inside the cabinet meeting expressed horror and outrage at what had taken place both at the Pentagon and at the World Trade Center. They said this goes beyond any act of defiance in the name of any religions. He said, you know, they said this is beyond the scope of human imagination to do something like this. They called it crimes against humanity, were words that I was hearing outside the cabinet room. So if you listen to the voices that were going into that cabinet meeting, there was a great deal of concern for what has taken place in the United States, and it seemed to indicate that the level of support against this type of act was very strong inside the Pakistani cabinet.
Tom Mintier in Islamabad. John.
The U.S. is preparing for war. A coalition of nations is forming, and as we've just heard, Pakistan seems to be edging towards it. How's all this being viewed in Kabul, capital of Afghanistan itself? Correspondent Nick Robertson joins us now by video phone with the word there. Nick?
Well, John, the very latest in an apparent direct reference to what's being considered in Pakistan from the foreign ministry here, saying that if a neighboring country should allow its soil to be used by the United States to attack Afghanistan, then they would have to consider replying to that. They could not rule out the possibility of the Taliban organizing an invasion force to be sent into that country. They didn't name the country in the statement, but it was clearly a direct reference to Pakistan, the debate in Pakistan going on at this time. Also in the statement from the foreign ministry, they said that for a short time, all foreign nationals living in Afghanistan would be forced to leave. There are many Pakistani businessmen who come here to Afghanistan. Pakistan has enjoyed very close relations with the Taliban over the last 4 or 5 years, and essentially the Taliban have really come to rely on Pakistan for all sorts of trade, for food goods, for business commodities. Most of what arrives in Kabul in terms of what one finds in the shops, food, whether it's a laptop computer, a photocopier machine, anything like that will come generally through Pakistan. So the Taliban have a great deal of reliance on their relationship with Pakistan, and for that reason they would be very threatened by the fact that Pakistan could begin to side with the United States right now. Jonathan?
Is anyone there talking about negotiation or dialogue with the United States? Is the tone there accommodating in any way, or simply bellicose?
It seems at the moment, Jonathan, that it's a very defiant position. There appears to be no diplomacy that we can detect going on at this time. Certainly in the early stages, there was a degree of diplomacy. Pakistan, we understand, was asked to pass a message to Taliban leadership. Most likely that message did come from the United States. We don't know that for certain, but most likely that's where it came from. But we've heard of no such talks in the last 3 days, and a diplomacy doesn't appear to be going on at the moment. Last night, Mullah Omar, the supreme leader of the Taliban, in a 15-minute radio address to the nation, really sort of geared them up to expect attack from America, told people that to put their faith in Allah and they would be safe, not to be afraid of an attack by America. He also went on to say that people should remember the sacrifices that their fathers and grandfathers made, dying for the cause of Islam. So really the nation here appears to be being prepared for attack by America, and Mullah Omar preparing the nation to repel that, to be very defiant in the face of it. It has to be said that Afghanistan has been in conflict the last 20 years. So for many people here, the fact that there would be another wave of attacks against the country is essentially just a continuation of an ongoing conflict. So it's nothing new for them, and for that reason, easier for them perhaps to accept that this might happen. Jonathan?
Nick Robertson in Kabul. Thanks. Zain?
Joining us now to discuss relations between Afghanistan and Pakistan is Wajid Shamsul Hassan in London. He's the former Pakistani High Commissioner to Britain. Sir, thank you for being with us. Let me start by asking you, you heard what Nick had to say just a moment ago, saying that the Taliban have threatened to launch an invasion into any neighboring country that offers support to the United States, be it access to ground bases or air bases. Do you think the Taliban is bluffing?
No, Taliban Zain are not bluffing, because they have got extended interest in Pakistan in the shape of various jihadi organizations. So they are capable of creating trouble if Pakistan sides with United States whole hog and carries on what Americans want Pakistan government to do. So in such a case, Pakistan will have to see, will have to see that there is not a major backlash, because the Taliban have over a dozen organizations, Mujahideen organizations, who are very closely liaised with them, and they can really create problems for General Musharraf's government.
Are you saying that it could be politically impossible for Pervez Musharraf?
No, I think it's, the crime has been so horrendous that Musharraf definitely has the backing of the people in extending support to the United States to combat international terrorism. But I would feel that it would have been better if the United States had gone to the United Nations and involved them in an operation that would not look like just a retaliatory measure, a measure to, a measure based on finding an scapegoat and striking at it. Instead of it should have been a global effort, so that more and more people were involved. You could have quietened the streets, agitating streets in the Middle East. You could have quietened dissent in other countries as well if you had assorted an action through United Nations.
How critical a point is Pakistan at right now?
It's definitely a very critical point, because Pakistan has been the main supporter of Taliban. The army has been looking after them, and they have been underwriting their civilian expenses. They have been providing them oil, they have been providing them food. But Taliban definitely is much dependent on Pakistan, and if Pakistan cuts off all these things to Taliban, they will be in real soup. But again, they have already hit rock bottom. There is not a building to look at in Kabul or around Kabul. Poverty is all over. There is no consideration for sick or the injured. So they already hit the rock bottom. They don't care what happens to them. They are in a state of mind where they would, as Mullah Omar said, die for Islam. And more and more, what my fears are, that as in international media seems to be building it up, we are going to land up in what Samuel Huntington had said years ago, a clash of civilizations. You are going to see revival of crusades. I think that will be the most dreaded thing that to happen to this world, if that happens, Can
you explain that a little more specifically, clash of civilizations? Why would that happen?
Well, if you look at the stories that we have heard in England today, or stories from all over other places, the attacks on Muslim buses, Muslim schools, Muslim mosques, and it seems to be, the perception that has been created is that it is Islam versus Christianity or Islam versus the United States. That is not the case. There are 2 billion Muslims in the world, and they are not all terrorists. But the perception that is being created is they are terrorists, and that is not a fact. So in order to create a situation where this sort of hatred doesn't generate further than what it is today, I think the world leaders, especially President Bush, should act very cautiously instead of being trigger happy or jumping to his guns on premises, on just mere conjectures or media perceptions that Osama is the person. Well, you must have credible evidence to prove that Osama is the person. Then only you must convince the world that we have got the evidence and we want to go after him. That would be the thing that will